Jenny is going to talk us about designing healthy buildings, which seems very appropriate after all that we've heard so far.
Thank you, and thanks for staying for the last lot. Yes, I've heard some great stuff in terms of research, so hoping this is going to be a perspective from industry for what kind of things that we get up to. So just a bit of quick background on me. So I've been working for Cundall for a couple of years. Most of my career has been air quality, but early on I was during environmental contaminated land. So doing ground gas risk assessments and vapour intrusion, internal vapour intrusion, that's more relevant to indoor air than it was to ambient. But then these often are in silos, and we don't often overlap in those. So Cundall, a multidisciplinary company, was originally going to be one of my colleagues in sustainability talking today, and we work closely with them, but they'll look at a range of different things in terms of healthy buildings, but my focus is air quality and odour. Yeah, so the aim is to just let you know why do we do what we do. So often it's a driver to do with a planning application, or it's a desire from a client who wants to demonstrate that they're doing the best they can. And what do we do to measure pollutant concentrations to inform ventilation strategies, and what opportunities have we got to try and influence the designs for better air quality? So yeah, regularly we need to refer to the national air quality objectives, but we always also refer to the World Health Organization, just so that we could make suggestions for what mitigation they could perhaps consider putting in if they want to aspire to these objectives. But it depends really on the client whether they're going to go that step beyond, or it might be that they're trying to demonstrate for a building accreditation scheme and they're trying to achieve a set level. And I'll just go through these on the next slide. So yeah, referring to, well, obviously the updated Part F, we have got some criteria for air quality, but there's still vagueness on distance from air exhausts and air intakes, and refers to another document. It's great, the air quality neutral guidance, which is evolving into air quality positive. So this is for London, but we are seeing that there's a few local authorities in their technical guidance document who are asking for an air quality neutral assessment as well. And it'd be great if this was rolled out more, because it's a good opportunity to try and get air quality discussion early on to influence the design. And there's a wealth of other guidance documents, so this is really just a snapshot that what we might refer to, and it might depend on that particular project. We might need to do a bit of research to look into what's relevant for our particular project. And this has been a big driver, particularly from commercial clients who are keen to understand about how CO2 in particular affecting productivity in offices. And we've got quite a big well focus, so we'll do the air quality, but we're then working with the sustainability team. So our London office was the first WELL Gold certified project in Europe. We've also got the Birmingham office, so we've got quite a lot of knowledge on that internally. So how do we measure and predict concentrations? So it may be that we need to go and monitor air quality. So that really depends on what information there is already available in terms of local authority data. And we always liaise with the local authority to let them know what our scope of assessment is. They may have their own technical guidance that states if the traffic flows are above this level, then we need site monitoring, or that they might have some local knowledge on that. So for example, this one in the middle, we were monitoring for a ventilation strategy because they wanted to put a mixed use building with hoping for openable windows, but right next to the Cemex work. So it was trying to put something on the boundary there. Talking to the environmental health officer, they also flagged that there was going to be a tall building constructed in the future on the other side of the road, and we also put a monitor somewhere there to see what could be going on there, to get some baseline data. And indoor air quality monitoring as well. So we've got a few different options that we use. So it may just be we've got aware sensors in a lot of our offices to give us an idea of what's going on, or it may be that we're going to collect pumped tube samples for BREEAM testing, and also starting to look at using the CEPHAs indoors, because they can monitor a few other pollutants that aren't on that main list there, like hydrogen sulfide and sulfur dioxide, for the rare occasion we might want to look at that. So we've got these aware sensors in all of our offices. They're kind of like a traffic light system, so we can see when there might be an issue. And we did find this was useful, in because there was one office where the productivity was low in the afternoon, and it turned out that the CO2 levels were really high. And talking to the landlord, it turned out that they'd had some maintenance done on the air handling units and forgotten to switch them back on. So then that flagged that, and so it can work in operation to improve things. And well, we're conscious of the sensors that we're using. We're trying to check just how good that data is. So trying to co-locate where we can. So at this particular project, we've co-located with an automatic monitor. And this is something that we've got involved with. So air-rated, and this is more for commercial, mainly commercial clients who are interested in this, for occupational, to just see how their building's performing. So there's 5 parameters, and then you get given an air score. So we'd help advise on where they might want to put their sensors, and then when the data comes in, what could that mean? And the main one that ends up being an issue is TVOCs, and it's trying to help them understand what's going on there. Is there some practice that they need to look into, and to try and amend that? And reset testing. So this is we're doing this for testing the HVAC system, so the air that's circulating and the air that's being taken in, and seeing how this is, just to see how the HVAC system is actually performing. And this was a bit more niche that we get involved in just a few of the projects. So it's less so of a human health, maybe it's more of so for data centers where we've got sensitive electronic equipment, we're looking at doing silver and copper coupons, and looking at the atmospheric corrosivity. So some of these sites are quite close to the coast, so salinity can have a bigger impact on the corrosivity. And then we'll also look at the dust in parallel with that. And we did have, so this is mainly for data centers, but we did have a potential client asking us about an art gallery, and they were worried about the ambient air and how it might affect their sensitive historic materials. So we were doing a bit of research on that, and to see what we might need to do. So what might we influence early design? So we've got the monitoring data, but then we also will do modelling. So we may use that alongside the monitoring data, or at the very least we take some monitored data to verify our model, and we can then predicting concentrations at different facades, different heights of the building. So this is usually to do with the traffic, future traffic flows, how that's going to change, and looking ahead to what the concentrations might be, so that can feed into the ventilation strategy. And also considering the building form. So as I mentioned on one of the projects, we got some knowledge from environmental health that a building was going to be constructed on the other side of the road. So if we know about things like that are going to be a concern, we can add that into our modelling and see if it's going to create a street canyon effect. Oh yeah, sorry, that's okay. So we could also monitor where air intakes are going to be, as well as potential where the openable windows will be. And we're finding, especially when we're doing for BREEAM, there's guidance about how far apart the air intakes need to be and the distance from external sources. And we do find this can be a bit of a struggle sometimes with mechanical engineers. If that this, well, especially when we get instructed too late and they say, oh, we forgot about air quality, but we need you to do something, to do an indoor air quality plan for BREEAM, and we say, okay, so where have you got any combustion plant? You might be going through low carbon, but they've still got, perhaps they've still got backup diesel generators. So we ask them where's the flue for those, and they sometimes they'll say they're horizontal at ground level and we want openable windows above. So that might not be an issue over the long term annual mean concentrations, but it's not obviously not ideal for the building of the rooms above. And then just trying to talk to them about the separating the distance. And if we've got involved too late in the design, then they're saying, I'm sorry, we're going to struggle to redesign that. But it's just trying to make them aware that ideally they need to go to roof level and away from busy roadside facades, etc. Also looking at the wider area where that's relevant. So if we can feed into the or get some information on the landscape design. So it might be that we can suggest that there's a buffer to separate the sensitive receptors have got a bit of a buffer from the source, such as the road, to try and extend that the distance. And we did actually have a local authority that were in their technical guidance. They were asking us to liaise with a landscape architect about exactly what trees they were going to be putting in, which we don't normally go to that level of detail, but that was interesting. And it was mainly to do with were there going to be an allergy risk rather than how they do in terms of pollution mitigation. Yeah, so we'd also advise on filtration. So if we have got an issue with, so it might be gaseous filtration or particulates. So it may be that they're going to achieve the air quality objectives, but if they're going to aspire to the more aspirational World Health Organization, or they may need to do this to reach to achieve the air quality objectives. But there's obviously considerations to be made in terms of selecting the right one, that the maintenance and the life cycle costs that are going to it's going to perform as it needs to. It's not going to create more drag than it needs to. If it's it kind of depends on, we can advise based on the particulate concentrations. So healthy materials. So we if we're doing an indoor air quality plan, we can include guidance on what materials should be used for construction that can hopefully have less of an impact on indoor air quality, because then if we then go ahead and do the monitoring afterwards for formaldehyde and TVOCs, they need to demonstrate that before it's pre-occupation levels are acceptable. And something that we're talking with our sustainability team, how we need to make sure we align with this, because it may be that when they do their embodied carbon assessments, so it might be some materials that are good for carbon, but perhaps they're not ideal for indoor air quality. So I feel like this is something that is perhaps evolving research that we want to get more involved with. And talking about that, evolving in research, so I've been supporting Birmingham Uni with their West Midlands Air project, and also the Clean Air for in its infancy. So obviously I'm coming at this as a consultant in the construction industry. So it's just good to liaise with researchers so we can keep up to date with the knowledge, and it's just good to know who to talk to about what's relevant in terms of research. And I think the reason I like my job in air quality so much is there's always lots of learning to do. It's just evolving so much and just trying to keep us on our toes. So always keen to hear about collaborating. And I think just about on that time. Yeah, and I've forgotten to put my email address on the end slide, but it's j.carrington@cundall.com. Yeah.
It's nice to have such a sort of collaborative industrial talk to round the day off. Do we have any questions for Jenny? Yes.
How do we find it? Or
Can I just-
how do we- yeah.
The question is, how do you find your corrosivity or salinity data?
Do you mean how do we collect it? Yeah, so the silver and copper coupons. So we set them up for exposure over a time period and then work out how it's in terms of the weight difference. So what was it when you set it up and how has it changed? Yeah.
Oh, so it's actually physically or chemically corroding the metal, and then you measure the
Yeah.
change in mass.
So we have been doing it for sites that are coastal locations. So they're saying they want to put a data center there, but it happens to be near the coast and also near a really dusty cement works. And we say, okay, that's really not great for air quality, but they're looking at so many other factors about where to put the site. So we're just one consideration, but we'll say, well, we need to check out, is this going to be viable? And if based on the conditions that we can then advise on what the ventilation needs to be so that it's not going to affect the sensitive electronic equipment.
Excellent. Tim.
That's really interesting. So if I understand correctly, you are asked sometimes to go in and evaluate buildings.
In operation?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What portion do you think is there of clients who want you to do that against clients who don't want to do that, who are scared of bad news?
Well, a lot of them, they're quite conscientious and they want to demonstrate that they're doing well. I suppose if they were anxious about bad news, they perhaps just wouldn't go there. So a lot of the time, they're quite proactive clients.
Yeah, they're the ones that come to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just wondering if you are in negotiations with people potentially about doing it. So
no, I mean, because being a private consultant, they will come to us and say, well, we need you to do that. So we're not really in the position to say, we think you need to do that because that's poor ventilation. But if it was a legislative requirement of some sort, then perhaps we could go in and target some.
One more question.
I think I perhaps know the answer to this because there's probably some sensitivity around data, but do you ever publish the POEs that you do? Like the quantitative POEs that you do? Do you ever publish that?
Well, I suppose
share with the wider
it generally, but the data belongs to the client. So unless it's like an environmental statement where, well, I suppose a lot of our reports for planning would then end up on the planning portal.
Yeah.
So you can access the information that way, but then
It's the POE specifically, I think there's a lot of data there.
yeah. Okay.
Excellent. Thank you again, Jenny.